Shalom, Israel. Most High in Christ bless. My name is Brother Zerubbabel,
My name is Ezra Elazar.
and we are children of Israel, and we are back again to tell everyone blessed Sabbath day. Um, Lord's will, you have a great Sabbath day today. We finally come out of some of this winter weather. Spring is upon us already, according to the actual spring. Um, all it takes, again, the time is changing later on this evening at what, 2 a.m. Don't forget to push your clocks ahead 1 hour. Um, During the winter time, it goes back an hour. During the springtime, it moves ahead. And like we mentioned last Sabbath, that if Esau knows when the true spring is here, they wouldn't be moving the clocks at this time if they didn't. All right. Um, it's just simple observation, that um, some of our brothers don't really want to acknowledge, don't want to really pay attention to. Some are set in their ways. All we could do is teach, bring out information, and it's up to you whether or not you're going to go research it for yourself, study it, and um, after finding that it's true, implement it. This lesson that we're going through today, it's titled "When is the Passover?" It's going to be a simple lesson, going to be a short lesson. The Passover is going to be coming up in just slightly under 2 weeks for us now. Um, First day of the first month was on Wednesday, according to the calendar that we are following. Again, if you want to understand the calendar, how we are keeping the Passover, keeping the calendar, keeping the high holy days, go watch our videos that we have on our channel dealing with the calendar. We have full video dealing with the day, a full video dealing with the week, the month, and another one dealing with the year. Go watch them in depth. Watch the entire videos. Don't skip forward. Don't walk away from them. Take notes, and then go back and research the stuff for yourself. Um, and Lord's willing, you will find that um, compared to the calendars that we had all been following dealing with the moon, you will find that this is the true calendar that the Lord had given us. It wasn't following the moon. In fact, dealing with the Passover, we also got to remember that when it comes to Easter, because a lot of our brothers and sisters are going to be following after Easter, which we know is a pagan holiday. But how do they count the days for Easter? By using the moon. So all it's right here staring us in our face, the truth. Um, it doesn't take a genius to go back and look that okay, all the other nations were following the moon. These pagan holidays, some of them, as far as like Easter, are being calculated by what? By the moon. That should be a wake up call, or at least should have you at least questioning. Like, wait a second, something is not adding up here. They use the moon to calculate Easter, and here we are using the moon to calculate Passover. Something's got to be off. We've got people adding a 13th month to the calendar when the scriptures are very clear that there's only 12 months in a calendar year, 52 weeks, 12 months. All right. So, again, go and watch those videos. All we're going to be doing today is just a simple lesson about when the Passover is. Next Sabbath, we'll go over another lesson dealing with more in detail about the Passover. There's a lot to it, especially spiritually. there are a lot of spiritual meaning to the Passover. You know what I mean? Like, why are we instructed to kill a lamb and things like that? But there's a lot of representation um, in the Passover as far as the lamb, all the things that we're required to eat on the Passover and during the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Um, Even the unleavened bread has a meaning to it. You know what I mean? So that'll be next Sabbath. We'll go more in detail with that. After that Sabbath next week, that following week, we'll be going into Passover. Um, so a lot of our brothers and sisters need to be retaught. You hear us mention this every class, every Sabbath that we teach. We always start off with Hebrews 5 and 12 through 14. Let's go ahead and go there today again. Start off with
The
that.
book, the book of Hebrews, chapter 5 and verse 12. For when for the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God, and are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. For everyone that useth milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil.
So again, for the time you ought to be teachers, you have need that one teach you again. We're not bringing this scripture out every Sabbath just to bring a scripture out, just to have something consistent to bring out. This scripture is very important to the growth of an individual when they come into this truth. This is you building a solid foundation. Something he and I were talking about the other day that I stand fast on. Um, if you haven't heard me mention it before, if you've watched our channel, you've watched some of our videos, you may have heard me mention it many of times that my basically entire life career over my life I was a martial arts instructor, 30 plus years of teaching. Okay. One thing that I found to be true, it's ironic. It was mentioned in the movie The Karate Kid. There is no such thing as bad student, only bad instructor. That's how Mr. Miyagi put it to Daniel. But it rings true. In my years of teaching, I saw the same thing over and over again. That there are there are good teachers, there are good bad teachers. Even in your school, you're gonna have good teachers and bad teachers. In society, good leaders, bad leaders. When you come across a bad teacher breeds bad students, which breeds bad teachers, instructors. Bad instructor breeds bad students, which breeds bad instructors. Leaders, bad leadership or bad leaders breeds bad followers, which breeds bad leaders. What do I mean by that? You got a leader, bad, wicked, evil, whatever, you know what I mean? They have bad leadership skills. They have a following. Those people that they raise up under them at some point are going to become leaders themselves. If not all of them, at least some of them. What are they going to take with them when they go out and teach? They're going to take the lessons. They're going to take the seed that was sown in them from their leader. If the leader was a bad leader, what do you think his pupils are going to be?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's something to keep in mind that um, we as teachers have always got to keep that in mind. You've heard me, if you've watched our videos, I say it all the time. When I was teaching, I always made it known, if you're gonna put on that black belt and you're gonna teach certain things, you better be following it outside your school. Because if you don't, what's going to happen when one of your students' parents or one of your students see you outside the school acting a certain way, and then you come back to the school saying, not to do certain things, that's going to make you a hypocrite. You can't have that. So it's the same thing even in this truth. Can't call yourself an Israelite, keeping the commandments, and then have people seeing you not acting like an Israelite, acting other than an Israelite. What is that going to make you? It's going to make you a hypocrite. Okay. So we've got to be very careful with this. And that's why we go back to Hebrews 5 and 12 all the time. For the time you ought to be teachers, you have need that one teach you again. And that's what we see happening in the Israelite community. Like I said, he and I were just talking about this the other day. You have in Israel, there are some bad leaders in Israel. Some of them are really bad. I mean, wicked, evil leaders in Israel. And these men have and had followers. These followers will, split off. Some of them have split off into their own little factions or groups. And now these men are leaders. What kind of leaders do you think they're going to be? If their leader was a bad leader, what kind of leader do you think they're going to be? They're only going to be regurgitating the lessons that were taught to them. Some of them, mind you, may have made some changes to their doctrines, but overall, they've kept or will keep the doctrines that was taught to them. So you're seeing this trickle down effect. And I mentioned because we talk about it all the time. Israel, as you've heard me say before, is very reactive. That's why you always see reaction videos. Oh, we're going to react to this. This something happens in Israel, reaction, reaction, reaction. We're trying to be proactive in trying to get to this before things happen. Try and put this out there before things happen to bring awareness that what these things are happening all the time. And in order to keep it from happening, you need to go back to the scriptures. You need to go back to the basics. We say it all the time. There are many leaders in Israel today that need to be retaught. Many of our brothers in this truth, they need a leader. They need real leadership because they've never had it. Many of them have never had a true leader. They had people that had the title of leader, but in reality, they were not leaders. Many of these men were not fit to lead congregations. They shouldn't be leading congregations. And now their students are out here leading congregations. And where are they leading their congregations to? As Christ put it, you got the blind leading the blind. And it's a trickle down effect. That's why I'm not going to try and stomp on anybody, while they're down or anything like that. But we are going to just bring some awareness that this precept is very important for anybody that is about to step into a leadership position and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go out and teach. I'm going to go out and teach. When for the time you ought to be teachers, you have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God. Before you think about picking up this Bible and hitting those streets and teaching, you need to make sure that you have put yourself in a position to have been surrounded by good leadership, great leadership. Quite honestly, I really think And I've said it before, that wouldn't it be a good thing if all of us put purple on and was out there marching, all of us united out there, you know, doing this work together. Um, but I know it'll fall on deaf ears.
Hmm.
I'm trying to say it without saying it, but you can't say it. You've heard me say it before. When I look at the Israelite community, there's only one person that I see in the Israelite community that um, you could look at it and say, you know what, man, that's a great leader right there. That's a great leader. That's not just a good leader, but a great leader. And if you know, I'm talking about Bishop Nathaniel. I'm going to continue to say it. Uh, a lot of you, a lot of us can benefit greatly from learning from his examples. When we already got Christ, Christ is our example. We know that. But I'm talking about as far as what we're seeing right here in front of us in the Israelite community, as far as leadership and learning to be a leader. Because quite honestly, I know of people in IUIC, and I know that I've seen people that I don't personally know in IUIC who are better, greater leaders than 99.999% of you brothers out here running camps and calling yourselves leaders. And they're right there learning under Bishop Nathaniel. If anything, many of them could actually be out, teaching and leading a congregation, by themselves on their getting at is that some of you need to take a self-examination and get off the high horse. Stop letting the people in your comments, and just because you got a few hundred viewers or a few thousand viewers on your page, um, pumping you up, because many of you really should not be teaching, should not be in a position of leadership. Many of you are exactly what Hebrews 5 and 11 through 13 through 14 is talking about. You need to be retaught. Many of you left congregations that you had a bad leader teaching you, and now you're out being a bad leader and a bad example for your congregation. And the only way that's going to change is you need to get yourself around good leadership. And my suggestion is that many of you, and like I said, many of us should look at um, what IUIC is doing and learning under someone of that caliber of teacher that's got 30, 40 years of teaching experience in this truth. The best way I could put this, in martial arts, depending on, the martial art, ninth degree black belt would make you what they would call a grand master. We know you're not supposed to call any man master upon earth. Is Bear with me. Ninth degree black belt would be what you would call grand master. All right. In martial arts terms, I would put Bishop Nathaniel as a ninth or 10th degree black belt in comparison to some of you brothers out here who are teaching out on the streets. Some of you haven't even reached the level of green belt yet. And you're out in the streets teaching. Haven't even reached the level of green belt. And you're out here trying to put yourself on the level of someone like a Bishop Nathaniel. It's laughable. It's crazy. And the sad part about it is you've got people following you. because that's all that's how society is today. All it is somebody that can speak real well, that could get on video. They look good, they sound good, they've got great looking uh, what do you call it, garments or something. People like the color of the camp. They can win debates, whatever the case is, and they will start following. It needs to stop. The only way that we're going to get rid of these problems and these issues in Israel, we keep saying it over and over again. That's why I'm not making no reaction videos, because we talk about this all the time. We don't need to react because we're being proactive about it and trying to warn you over and over again. Take a step back and look at the people that you're following. Listen to the things that they say. Listen to the words that come out of their mouth. And it doesn't take a genius to hear the rhetoric that comes out of some of these dudes' mouths for you to be able to say, you know what, they're not serious about this. They're very disingenuous. They are not sincere about this at all. All right. Um, and again, we bring this out all the time. It's nothing new. And the reason why is we're trying to warn Israel, just like Christ tried to warn Israel, that there are going to be false teachers and false prophets in these last days. And a lot of you are in many of these false leaders and false teachers and false prophets camps. And then, you know what? Let's go to Sirach 1 and read 1 and 28 through 30.
Perfect. The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 1 and verse 28. Distrust not the fear of the Lord when thou art poor, and come not unto him with a double heart. Be not a hypocrite in the sight of men, and take good heed what thou speakest. Exalt not thyself, lest thou fall, and bring dishonor upon thy soul. And go and so God discover thy secrets and cast thee down in the midst of the congregation, because thou camest not in truth to the fear of the Lord, but thy heart is full of deceit.
We stress this. You hear us bring these precepts out all the time as a warning to Israel. Nobody's going to listen. We're nobody. Nobody knows who we are. But these precepts would save Israel a whole lot of problems, because thou camest not in truth to the fear of the Lord, but thy heart is full of deceit. Many of you brothers out here teaching, these precepts fit you to a T. And we know this because we listen closely to the words that come out of your mouths. Be not an hypocrite in the sight of men, and take good heed what thou speakest. This is not the NFL. This is not the NBA. This is not the Major League Baseball where, something happens in the clubhouse and you get asked by a reporter, well, how did this leak? What happened? Well, do you guys want to talk about this? Like, no, we'll rather handle it in-house. We'll keep it in-house. That's what Esau does. That's not what we're not supposed to be hiding each other's sins. We're not supposed to be hiding judgment behind closed door sessions. That's not what happens in Israel. But you have some of your leaders in Israel that's how they roll. I would rather this have been handled in-house. That's not biblical. Show me the scripture that says that when one of your brothers gets caught in a situation, gets caught up in any kind of sin or ought, that you handle it in-house. Where is it at? It's not here. It's not in the scriptures. Again, Sirach 1 and 28, distrust not the fear of the Lord when thou art poor, and come not unto him with a double heart. Be not an hypocrite in the sight of men, and take good heed what thou speakest. Many of the leaders in Israel let all kinds of foolishness, all kind of vitriol, all kind of, hate, profanity, all kinds of vulgar words and language spill out of their mouths consistently. And along with that comes a lot of lies, a lot of false teachings. Um, you could go on and on because they don't take heed about they're not cognizant of what they're saying when they're speaking. Some of them are just talking because some of them just like to talk. A lot of our people are that way. They just like to talk a lot. Exalt not thyself, lest thou fall. And you see this happening throughout Israel. Brother will leave his camp. Next thing you know, he's given himself some new title, exalting himself. Well, I'm no longer going to be called this. Now I'm going to be known as so and so. Exalt not thyself, lest thou fall, and bring dishonor upon thy soul. And so God discover thy secrets. God is always going to know your secrets. You can't hide any secrets from God. You're going to have to answer at some point or another, and cast thee down in the midst of the congregation. Why does this keep happening? Why do we keep seeing leaders in Israel getting cast down in the midst of the congregation? He tells us, because thou camest not in truth to the fear of the Lord, but thy heart is full of deceit. And the Lord will give you guys multiple chance after chance after chance to repent until you come to the fullness of your sins. And that's when the Lord is going to say, you know what? It's time for me to take them down. It's time for me to reveal their secrets. It's time for this to be brought to the open. No, the Lord is not going to hold it in-house. He's not going to do a secret backroom meeting, you know what I mean, to hide whatever it is you've done. The Lord is very open in the scriptures about his servants that were great and did good, that were perfect and just. He lets it be known. But on the flip side, when some of his servants were wicked and evil and did all kind of manner of foolishness in the sight of the nation, in the sight of the Lord, he also let that be known openly too. He didn't hide anything. He didn't hold back. Go read the scriptures and see how many of our forefathers that the Lord flat out said, so-and-so came into power at such and such a time, and he did evil in the sight of the Lord, or he did wickedness in the sight of the Lord, and did not follow the commandments as his father did, or as you find that all throughout the scriptures. The Lord doesn't hold back. The Lord doesn't care that you passed away a year ago, or 10 years ago, or 1,000 years ago, or 10 or 5,000 years ago, whatever the case. If you were wicked and evil, he's going to let it be known in the scriptures. He's going to bring it out clearly that you were wicked and evil and you did some wicked and evil stuff. Why does he do that? We'll get to that in a second. But some of you need to take Hebrews 5 and 11 through 14. We always start at 12, but 11 through 14, you need to take it seriously. Sirach 1 and 28 through 30, you need to take it serious. Again, I'm going to read it one last time. Just trust not the fear of the Lord when thou art poor, and come not unto him with a double heart. Be not an hypocrite in the sight of men, and take good heed what thou speakest. Exalt not thyself, lest thou fall and bring dishonor upon thy soul. And so God discover thy secrets and cast thee down in the midst of the congregation, because thou camest not in truth to the fear of the Lord, but thy heart is full of deceit. Again, many of you brothers in this truth need to stop acting like black belts and acknowledge you're just that green or or purple belt, that some of you are at that level, and humble yourselves and desire the sincere milk of this word, and go back and find yourself a quality teacher and be retaught and be up under the this man for a time, or whoever it is for a time, so that you can learn true leadership skills. I'm just saying. Let's go to 1 Peter 2:2.
The book of First Peter, chapter 2 and verse 2. As newborn babes, desire the sincere milk of the word, that ye may grow thereby.
So many of you got to humble yourselves, be willing to be retaught, get yourself under a true teacher, a true leader that is keeping the commandments. All right. Um, it's sad to see, because it's always around Passover time that this stuff starts to happen. Or if it's not Passover, it's one of the other high holy days. It's like right when the high holy day is about to come about, all manner of foolishness starts happening. All kinds of crazy stuff starts to happen in Israel. So, desire the sincere milk of the word, that you may grow. Some of you need that milk. You need to stop trying to eat that filet mignon, because you're not ready for it. That's why you see these things happening in Israel. All right. Um, let's go to Romans 15:4.
The book of Romans, chapter 15 and verse 4. For whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we, through patience and comfort of the scriptures, might have hope.
So that's why we want to go back into the scriptures, read, study, apply it to your life, your daily routine, the Passover, the keeping of the commandments, all of these things that are taught to us in the scriptures. This isn't a buffet where you get to pick and choose what you want, because that's what's happening in Israel. You have people becoming leaders in Israel and deciding, you know what, yeah, these are the commandments we're going to keep in our camp. Those ones we're going to throw out. Yeah, that one I don't like. Yeah, I'm not going to keep that one. But this one right here, yeah, we'll keep this one. That's what's happening. And then they're out teaching, and that's what they tell you. Well, in our camp, this is what we keep. This is what we do. That's not what the Lord said. That's not what he commanded us to do. The things that were written in the scriptures were written for our learning. It was written for us to learn from our forefathers and to not make the same mistakes that they made. And unfortunately for Israel, we can't get out of our own way, that we just can't stop making these foolish mistakes. Foolish mistakes. So, again, when for the time you ought to be teachers, you have need that one teach you again, like many of our brothers that and sisters that are not in the truth when it comes to the Passover. Many of our brothers and sisters need to be retaught, because they have Christianity on the brain. Instead of celebrating Passover, many are going to be looking forward to Easter. In fact, when is the so-called Easter holiday coming up? Give me a second. Let me share the screen. Let me look it up. When is Easter? Easter 2025. Okay. Yeah, that's ironic, but the reason why it's happening, you will see how, let me share, happening at this time is because, again, they're following the moon when it comes to Easter. So that's why Easter is always on different Sundays, sometimes in March, sometimes in April. And some of our brothers following the moon are finding that their Passovers are going to be around the same time as Easter. Present, share screen. Can you see it?
Yep. Hmm.
So what I'm finding here, Easter, Sunday, April 20th. Easter in 2025 will be celebrated on Sunday, April 20th. Easter, also known as Resurrection Sunday or Pascha, commemorates the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead according to the New Testament. Really, Easter. Where in the New Testament do you find that it says celebrate Easter because it commemorates the resurrection of Christ? It's not written nowhere in the New Testament, and that's the problem. So many of our people don't read the Bible that they'll read something like this online and take it as gospel. Oh, see, oh yeah, Easter's on the 20th, and yeah, it tells us to commemorate the resurrection of Christ. Yeah, it's written in the New Testament without ever going to read the New Testament to see if what is written right here is true. We just did a whole lesson about this last Sabbath and the Sabbath before about what our enemies have lied to us. We found that our enemies have lied to us about a lot of things. And this is what they do, they slip little lies like this. They slip it in. And because you Israelites, you so called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans are too lazy to pick the Bible up and read it, you'll read this online and say, oh, see, yeah, see, those Israelites don't know what they're talking about. See, it says that it's to commemorate the resurrection of Christ. It's written in the New Testament. And then you see some Israelites on the streets teaching. You go running up to their camp when they're teaching our people not to celebrate Easter, and you'll start arguing with them saying, no, Easter is to commemorate the resurrection of Christ. It's the truth. It's in the Bible. Without ever reading the Bible, because you're relying on the lies of our enemies. When is Easter? Why it falls so late in 2025? Yeah, why is it falling so late in 2025? People will read something like this and they'll just go, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Let's read this. Let's find out, why is Easter falling so late in 2025? How is Easter determined? It's related to the moon. MOON. That should be a wake up call for some of you right there. Easter is related to the moon. Oh, so then how is Passover related to the moon? This year, Easter will be observed on Sunday, April 20th. Why is this all important Christian holiday so late in 2025? How is the date determined and why does it change? What is the rarest date? Where did the word Easter come from? The Old Farmer's Almanac answers your questions. When is Easter 2025? Easter's date this year is Sunday, April 20th, based on the Gregorian calendar. However, many Eastern Orthodox churches follow the Julian calendar rather than the Gregorian. In 2025, Eastern Orthodox Easter will also occur on Sunday, April 20th. The Julian calendar date converted to the Gregorian calendar. 2025, April 20th, April 20th. The Julian calendar date converted to Gregorian, which makes absolutely no sense. If you're just going to convert the Julian calendar over to the Gregorian, why are you going to follow the Julian calendar? That's stupid. It makes no sense. You see how they just, I'm telling you, Esau is crazy.
Right.
2026, the Gregorian calendar, Easter is going to be on the 5th. On the Julian calendar is going to be on the 12th. 2027, the Gregorian calendar is going to be on the 28th of March. The Julian calendar is going to be on May 2nd. 2028, April 16th for the Gregorian, and somehow they end up together again on April 16th for the Julian calendar. And people don't question at all. What day is Easter? Easter is always held on a Sunday, hence the name Easter Sunday. In 2025, it will be held on Sunday, April 20th. When is Ash Wednesday? When is Lent? Another thing you will not find in the scriptures that so many of our northern kingdom, and there are some Judah that are Catholics also, or southern kingdom that are Catholics, but many of our Catholic brothers and sisters this past week went to the church and got an ash cross put on their forehead and was walking around with that cross on their foreheads, thinking that they just did something righteous. When is Ash Wednesday? When is Lent? The Christian season of Lent begins on Ash Wednesday, 40 days before Easter, not counting Sundays. In 2025, Ash Wednesday is March 5th. Ask yourself, where can you find this in the scriptures that tells us 40 before Easter, we're supposed to count Sundays until Easter, 40 days. And on that day where it starts, we're supposed to go to the church and get a cross made of ashes put on our foreheads. It says, in 2025, Ash Wednesday is March 5th. Many Christians attend church services on Ash Wednesday to receive ashes on their foreheads and the sign of the cross. Ashes are a symbol of penance in the Old Testament and in pagan antiquity. See how they try and people will read this and not even question. How are you mixing this pagan foolishness with our Bible? Where in the Old Testament that it says ashes are a symbol of penance? Where do you find it? It's not there. In the Roman Catholic Church, Ash Wednesday is a day of fasting. In the 6th century, Christians who had committed grave faults were obliged to do public penance. On Ash Wednesday, they donned a hair shirt, which they wore for 40 days, and the local bishop blessed them and sprinkled them with ashes. Then, while others recited the 7 penitential psalms, the penitents were turned out of the holy place. They could not enter the church again until Maundy Thursday, the Thursday before Easter, when they received absolution. Sir, where do you read about any of this stuff in the Bible? You don't, because it's not there. You're not going to find anything in the Bible about the 7 penitential psalms. You're not going to read anything in the Bible about the penitents. Nothing in the Bible about Maundy Thursday. Is Easter always in March or April? Easter is a movable feast. The Bible says the Lord's feasts are set feasts. Ironic, right? But again, our people will read something like this, not even question, and just go, oh, thinking they just learned something new about Easter. Easter is a movable feast, so it doesn't happen on the same date from year to year. In the Gregorian calendar, it is always observed on a Sunday between March 22nd and April 25th. However, Easter can be observed between April 4th and May 8th in the Eastern Orthodox Church. Go to Numbers 29 and 29.
The book of Numbers, chapter 29 and verse 29. And on the sixth day,
Numbers
8
29, 29, 39.
39. The book of Numbers, chapter 29 and verse 39. These things ye shall do unto the Lord in your set feast, besides your vows and your free will
In your
offerings,
what?
and your vows
In your set
uh,
what? Go, or I
shall
think
do
you were
unto
cutting
the
out.
oh
Read
these
the first part again.
these things ye shall do unto the Lord in your set feast, besides your vows in your set feast.
In set feast. Set feast. It doesn't say anything about movable feasts. As it says here, Easter is a movable feast. The Lord says that his feasts are set. They are set in their seasons. They don't move around on the calendar. And you see, because many of our brothers, we did the same thing until we learned better, that many of our brothers are still following the moon, where these feasts move around from season to season. All right. So adding a 13th month, some years having 12 months, some years having 13 months following the moon. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. So it says Easter is a movable feast, so it doesn't happen on the same day from year to year. In the Gregorian calendar, it is always observed on a Sunday between March 22nd and April 25th. However, Easter can be observed between April 4th and May 8th in the Eastern Orthodox Church. Now read what you read in the scriptures. Let's see if the scriptures lines up with what we just read there.
Read it again.
Yes, sir.
These things ye shall do unto the Lord in your set feast, besides your vows and your free will offerings, for your burnt offerings, and for your meat offerings, and for your drink offerings, and for your peace offerings.
Because all those offerings are also set. There's a certain number of lambs, a certain number of burnt offerings that you got to do, a certain number of meat offerings, drink offerings that goes along at certain times that are supposed to be done in their seasons, meaning at the appointed time that the Lord set. And you can go through, there are several precepts that refer to the set feasts. Nothing about movable feasts. All right. What is the common Easter date? Over a 500-year period from 1600 to 2099 AD, Easter will most often be celebrated on either March 31, or April 16th. What is the most unusual Easter date? According to long-term averages, the most unusual Easter date is March 22nd. The second place goes to April 24th, and the third place goes to March 23rd. How is the date of Easter determined? Easter Sunday always occurs on the first Sunday after the Paschal full moon. Paschal full moon. And unfortunately, we've got some of our brothers in the truth that are following the full moon. What is the Paschal full moon? This is specifically the first Sunday following the full moon that occurs on or after the March or spring equinox. While Christmas is fixed to a solar calendar and near the winter solstice, Easter is based on the lunar cycles of the Jewish calendar. In the Christian religion, the Last Supper, the final meal Jesus shared with his apostles before his crucifixion, was a Passover feast because Easter is based on a lunar month, which is 29.5 days. The date of Easter can vary. So now let's ask ourselves this question. Is that not confusion? Because where is it in the scriptures that the Lord said that some of his feasts are counted according to the lunar cycle and some of the feasts are counted according to the solar calendar? Where is that found? That's confusion. He gave us one calendar. All of the high holy days are affixed to that calendar. It says because Easter is based on a lunar month, which is 29.5 days, the date of Easter can vary. Note that the spring equinox date used by the Christian church is always March 21 to simplify matters. In fact, you go through and watch our videos because we go through and show you how the spring equinox date was changed from the 16th, which it originally was and is because it hasn't changed, but they changed it to March 21st. It says, note that the spring equinox date used by the Christian church is always March 21 to simplify matters. See how they always have like some kind of a little explanation to simplify matters. They did it to make it simple, more simple. In fact, the astronomical date of the equinox can shift by a day or so. In 2025, the astronomical date of the equinox is March 20, which also is not true. So you'll often see this called the ecclesiastical equinox. The real equinox, how would I put it? Um, it's been changed. Man, you go watch our video because I'm trying not to go too
Right.
to it, but
Right.
they've gone through a lot of trouble to change this. Says so you will often see this called the ecclesiastical equinox, the date used by the church. What happens when the full moon and spring equinox occur on the same day? Generally, if the full moon occurs on the same day as the spring equinox, Easter is observed on the subsequent Sunday. However, there is a caveat. As mentioned above, the Christian church decided to simplify calculating Easter's date by always observing the spring equinox on March 21st, despite the fact that the equinox date changes over time and is actually getting earlier. That's a lie.
Right.
This discrepancy between the astronomical equinox date and the church's again, spring equinox literally actually really just happened. Okay. Last week. And they know this because they're changing the time tomorrow, which is basically tonight.
Right.
That's why I say you've got to stop following and listening to the lies of our oppressors. You've got to stop. Says according to the formula above, this should have meant that Easter would be observed on Sunday, March 24. However, because the church observes the equinox on March 21, because it was the Pope that made the change. The Pope made the change. Says the full moon technically did not occur on or just after the equinox, meaning that the next full moon would determine Easter's date instead. Thus, in 2019, Easter was held on Sunday, April 21, after the full moon on Friday, April 19th. What is the paschal full moon? The word paschal, which is used in the ecclesiastical Christian church calendar, comes from Pascha, a translation of the Aramaic word meaning Passover. Where in the scriptures do you read about a Passover full moon? In reference to the full moon, Paschal refers to the date of the full moon, which was determined many years ago as the 14th day of a lunar month. Ancient calculations made in AD 325 did not consider certain lunar motions. So it's literally telling you ancient calculations made in AD 325 did not consider certain lunar motions. In other words, they weren't following the moon. That's exactly what that's saying, right?
Right.
So the Paschal full moon is the 14th day of a lunar month occurring on or after March 21 according to a fixed set of ecclesiastical calendar rules. What fixed set of ecclesiastical calendar rules? Says which does not always match the date of the astronomical full moon nearest the astronomical spring. You see how Esau word stuff to cause confusion? What we're reading right here makes absolutely no sense to anybody.
Right.
Because it sounds complicated, but the basic idea is to make it simpler to calculate the date for modern calendars. You see the double speak. These Esau is the devil the Bible speaks of. They are some liars, and they're good at it. And they're good at making people, especially our people, fall for this mumbo jumbo because it sounds good. It sounds complicated, but the basic idea is to make it simpler to calculate the date for modern calendars. You still haven't explained how it is simpler. You just made it more complicated. It says, rest assured, the dates for Easter are calculated long in advance. See past and future Easter dates here. Yeah. The golden number. What is the golden number? Readers often ask us about the golden number, which is traditionally used in calculations to determine the date of Easter. The golden number is a value used to show the dates of new moons for each year following a 19-year cycle. The moon repeats the dates of its phases approximately every 19 years, the Metonic cycle, and the golden number represents a year in that cycle. The year of the cycle can then be used to determine the date of Easter. Now, after what we just read, do you know what the golden number is yet? Never told us what the golden number is. It just keeps referring to the golden number. Read this again. The golden number is a value used to show the dates of new moons for each year following a 19-year cycle. That does not tell you what the golden number is. Readers often ask us about the golden number, which is traditionally used in calculations to determine the date of Easter. The moon repeats the dates of its phases approximately every 19 years, the Metonic cycle, and the golden number represents a year in that cycle. Does that make any sense?
No.
So any of those years in that 19 years is the golden number? Is the 19 years itself the golden number? It says the year of the cycle can then be used to determine the date of Easter. This makes no sense at all. None. The moon repeats the dates of its phases approximately every 19 years, the Metonic cycle, and the golden number represents a year in that cycle. So 1 year in that cycle is the golden number. The second year of that cycle represents the golden number. The third year in that cycle represents the golden number. The fourth year and so on. So why is it called a golden number instead of golden numbers? Which year of the 19 years is the golden number? It says to calculate the golden number, add 1 to any given year and divide the result by 19, ensuring that you calculate to the nearest whole number. But now they want you to be a mathematician. The remainder is the golden number. If there is no remainder, the golden number is 19. Oh my gosh. This is crazy, man. All of this just to tell you the golden number is 19. Basically. You see how Esau always puts things in a vacuum of confusion, and people come out of this and just, okay, Easter's on this date. It says, for example, to calculate the golden number for 2025, we take 2025 and add 1, resulting in 2026, then divide it evenly by 19, giving us 106 with a remainder of 12. Therefore, the golden number for 2025 is 12, meaning 2025 is the 12th year of the metatonic cycle. Now, that makes some sense after you calculate it and show how to calculate it. But where do you find this in the Bible? You don't. You don't find any of this in the scriptures. No metonic number, no golden number, none of this stuff you do not find in the Bible. What is Easter? Easter is the holiest day in the Christian calendar. It observed the most central tenet of the Christian faith, that Jesus Christ was resurrected from the dead. The resurrection represents the triumph of good over evil, sin, death, and the physical body. Easter Sunday marks the end of Holy Week, the end of Lent, and the last day of the Easter Triduum, starting from the evening of Maundy Thursday through Good Friday, Holy Saturday, and Easter Sunday, as well as the beginning of the Easter season of the liturgical year. Where did the word Easter come from? Easter, also called Pascha or Resurrection Sunday, is a festival and holiday commemorating the resurrection of Jesus from the dead. Let's start with Pascha, Latin, which comes directly from Pesach, the Hebrew word for Passover. Going back to the Hebrew Bible and the story of the first Passover, Moses tells the Israelites to slaughter a Passover lamb and paint its blood on their doors. The Lord protected the Israelites from death by passing over their doors and would not allow the destroyer to enter your houses to strike you down. Exodus 12:23. Paul connects the resurrected Christ to Passover in the New Testament, 1 Corinthians 5:7. He refers to Jesus as the Paschal Lamb, sacrificed for his people's salvation. Man, oh man, oh man. You hear this, right?
Yep.
They're literally writing this in this what do you want to call this? A thesis or can't think of the word right now. They're telling you right here. He refers to Jesus as the Paschal Lamb sacrificed for his people's salvation. Not the world's, not all nations, but for his people's salvation. Jesus celebrated the Last Supper with his disciples during Passover, so it makes sense that the Feast of the Resurrection is connected with the Jewish holiday. Wow.
Right.
Today, Christians celebrate the Paschal mystery. So, where did the word Easter come from? The exact origin of the word Easter is unclear. Yeah, right. They don't want you to know that it comes from the word Ishtar. It's not as simple as saying it has a religious origins or pagan origins. Some historians suggest that it came from the phrase Hebdomada Alba, Latin for White Week, used to describe the white garments new Christians wore when they were baptized during Holy Week. In Old German, the word became what is that? Esosterum, and eventually Easter. Yeah. The Venerable
Mm.
Bede, a 7th century Anglo-Saxon historian, also known as Saint Bede, writes that the word Easter comes from the Anglo-Saxon dawn goddess of fertility, Eostre, also the goddess of the dawn, who originated in what is now Scandinavia, who is also known, if you don't know, as Ishtar. Over time, early Christians started referring to the Feast of the Resurrection by the name of the month in which it was celebrated, Easter Monath, what we now call April. Alternatively, Easter may come from an old German word for east, which in turn is derived from the Latin word for dawn. In the past, the word Easter could mean to turn toward the east or rising and didn't necessarily have any implied religious meaning. No, it was the Germans who invented the Easter bunny, who visited good children's homes, much like they invented Santa Claus. The bottom line is that no one truly knows the etymological origins of the word Easter. That's a lie. It is one of the oldest Old English words. It's one of the oldest words, but nobody knows where it originated from. In the end, it is important whether Easter comes from the goddess of the dawn or the Latin word for dawn. In whatever language, Easter today is a Christian holiday. Like, you know what? Don't worry about it. If it came from a pagan goddess, don't worry about that. Because today, what we celebrate it for is to remember the resurrection of Christ. See how wicked that is? Easter today is a Christian holiday to celebrate Christ's resurrection and the reminder that death brings life. It's crazy. Traditional Easter dishes include seasonal produce, as well as symbols of spring, such as lamb, ham, eggs, asparagus, spring peas, hot cross buns, sweetbreads, and carrot cake. See how wicked Esau is?
Hmm.
Where in the Bible does it say to put some ham next to your lamb on your plate and eat it with some eggs and asparagus, some spring peas, hot cross buns, and sweet bread and carrot cake? It's crazy, man. I'm serious. This is
Right.
funny that they mentioned the Easter bunny or whatever it is, because that's one of the problems with our people. Real quick, let's go to Second Timothy chapter 4 and read verses 3 and 4.
The book of Second Timothy, chapter 4, and verse 3. For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lust shall they heap to themselves teachers having itching ears, and they shall turn away their ears from the truth, and shall be turned unto fables.
And shall be turned unto fables, such as the Easter bunny, and this is the one that they love to get the kids with. Old Peter
Right.
Cottontail. They even got the song, Well, how much is this original Peter Cottontail first edition book? Almost $2,000. You gotta be kidding me.
Wow.
That is nuts. Wow. All for people to learn a lie. Wow. I'm serious. I'm astonished at that. That's crazy. But read that again.
For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but after their own lust shall they heap to themselves teachers having itching ears, and they shall turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned unto fables.
And shall be turned unto fables. And many of you brothers and sisters, you so called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, are going to teach this foolishness to your kids and have them running around singing, "Here comes Peter Cottontail." What is it? Hopping down the bunny trail. I can't remember the exact words. Every year they used to play these claymation cartoons. I don't know if they still show them anymore. "Here comes Peter Cottontail." Actually, this is what they would do every year. An animated musical special, 8 p.m. on channel 3, 7, 10, and 11. Happy Easter on CBS. Many of you probably remember this, but it's all a lie. These are fables. This is what they've got our people following again. And your enemies shall be found liars unto thee. They've lied to you, and in turn, you're turning around and teaching these lies to your kids. Fables. Make it cutesy for the kids, and many of you are going to use that excuse. Well, we're only doing it for the kids. It's fun for the kids. Having Easter egg hunts and all that kind of stuff. What is it? The Easter basket. Many of our brothers and sisters are going to be spending their money buying these Easter basket gifts for their kids. The Easter basket. You walk through the store, and what are you going to find? You're going to find the Easter baskets all over the place. Where is this in the Bible? Where is it in the Bible that we're told to create an Easter basket? Or we never questioned it. None of us did until we came into this truth. But many of our brothers and sisters need to be retaught. That's why Hebrews 5 and 12 through 14 is so important. Many of our brothers and sisters need to be retaught so they can come up out of this foolishness, because they're doing it for who? For the kids. It's fun for the kids. No, it's to teach your kids lies, because they know that when you teach a kid something at a young age, when they're old, it's hard to run away from it, to turn away. Go to Proverbs 22 and 6.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 22, and verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it.
This is what your enemies know about you from reading your Bible. They know that when you start teaching a kid certain traditions and customs, that by the time they become an adult, it's going to be real hard for them to change. See the smile on the little boy's face. He got his Easter baskets with all his little cars and toys, his cute little Easter bunny. This is what they're banking on, teaching the kids lies so that by the time they become adults, they're too foolish and too lazy to go and learn the truth and come up out of it, because now they're going to teach it to their kids and to their kids, and they're going to teach their kids, and it's going to keep trickling down. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. That's why you've got to start teaching your kids about Passover. You got to start teaching your kids this Bible. We've got to. Go to Deuteronomy 6 and read chapter 6 and read verses 6 through 7.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 6 and verse 6. And these words which I command, which I command thee this day, shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest in their house, and when thou walkest by the way, and when thou liest down, and when thou risest up.
So you're supposed to be teaching your children this Bible. You're supposed to be teaching them the commandments of God, not teaching them these false pagan holidays, not teaching them the lies of your oppressors. We're not supposed to be doing that. What are we supposed to be teaching them? Exactly what we're going to show you today. We're going to this is a brief lesson about when the Passover is. Not going to go too deep into it. All right. Just to give basic information about the Passover, so you can start to get Easter out of your mind, especially if you're a new brother or sister and you come into this lesson somehow, Lord willing. You can watch the lesson and you will have somewhat of an idea about the Passover. All right, so let's go to the book of Exodus, chapter 12. You're going to read verses 1 through 6.
The book of Exodus, chapter 12 and verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. And if the house be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening.
So the Lord gave clear and concise commands as to what we're supposed to do for the Passover. So he told us that the month that we hold the Passover is the beginning of months. That's the first month of the year, is when the Passover is to be held. That first month is what is called Abib, the month of Abib, which means ear of corn. All right, real simple. Then he goes on and tells us on the 10th day of the month, we're supposed to get a lamb and we're supposed to set it apart. Now, you can't just go and grab any old lamb and show up with any lamb. He gives specific instructions about this lamb. The lamb, as it says in verse 5, your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. you shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats. So that means it can't have no spots in the coat. If it's white, it needs to be all white. Can't have not one dark spot on it. If it's a dark lamb, it needs to be all dark. Can't have no spots on it. Can't have a lame foot. Can't be limping. Lame leg. Jacked up eye. One of the eyes is halfway closed or something. It's got to be basically a perfect lamb. Can't be anything wrong with it. Can't show up with the lamb that's foaming at the mouth. None of that stuff. So it says, your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. So no, you cannot show up with a female lamb and sacrifice a female lamb. It's got to be a male of the first year. It says you shall take it out from the sheep or from the goat. So you have a choice: either get a sheep or get a goat. One of the two. All right. He also tells us that we're supposed to keep it from the 10th day until the 14th day. So you set that lamb apart for those days. All right. And on the 14th day, that's when the lamb is killed at evening, which is actually the 15th day. All right. As it says, you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. There is some debate among some camps that are saying that it's the 13th day at evening, at even, going into the 14th day, that the Passover is the 14th day of the month, and then you start unleavened bread on the 15th. That's not how it's calculated. That's not how it is stated in the scriptures. All right. The first thing we have to understand is, when does a day end? Is it morning to morning, or is it even to even, which is evening to evening? Because there's also people that are teaching a morning to morning doctrine, that the day begins in the morning and ends in the morning and not the evening. But that's not what the Bible teaches. Let's go to one second. What did I do? Oops. See what I did? Okay, I got it. I got it. Now it's making sense. Let's go to Judges 19 and 9.
The book of Judges, chapter 19 and verse 9. And when the man rose up to depart, he and his concubine and his servants, his father in law, the damsel's father, said unto him, behold, now the day draweth toward evening. I pray you tarry all night. Behold, the day groweth to an end. Lodge here, that thine heart may be merry, and tomorrow get you early on your way, that thou mayest go home.
So this precept right here shows clearly that the day ends at evening, that the day begins and ends at evening. As he says, now the day draw toward evening. I pray you tarry all night. Behold, the day groweth to an end, letting us know that the day comes to an end in the evening. So if the day comes to an end at evening, that means that the day begins in the evening, not morning to morning. That morning to morning doctrine has got to go. Again, that's why we are having so much problems in Israel, because people are hasty to go out and, and try and find something new or something different to teach, And you've got a lot of these doctrines popping up. All right. The day does not begin in the morning, according to the scriptures. The day begins in the evening. And you read about that in the very beginning of the scriptures. Again, not going to spend much time on that because we've got lessons about the calendar that you go and watch. Okay. So, but the question is, do you sacrifice the lamb on the 13th day at evening, which is the 14th day? Or do you sacrifice the lamb on the 14th day at evening, which is the 15th day? All right, let's read Exodus 12:6 one more time.
The book of Exodus, chapter 12, and verse 6. And ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall keep it in the evening.
Or shall kill it in the evening. So it says, and ye shall keep
Kill
it
it.
up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. So again, the question being asked, is it the 13th day at even, meaning the 14th day, or is it the 14th day at even, meaning the 15th day? Which one? All right. First, you got to understand that there are other scriptures or laws that use the same language, or high holy days that use the same kind of rhetoric or language. All right. Let's go to Leviticus 23 and read 26 through 32. And you're going to see that it's in a sense telling us the same thing, that these things start in the evening.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 23, and verse 26. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, also on the 10th day of this 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be an holy convocation unto you, and ye shall afflict your souls, and offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. And ye shall do no work in that same day, for it is a day of atonement, to make an atonement for you before the Lord your God. For whatsoever soul it be that shall not be afflicted in that same day, he shall be cut off from among his people. And whatsoever soul it be that doeth any work in that same day, the same soul will I destroy from among his people. He shall do no manner of work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. It shall be unto you a um, Sabbath of rest, and ye shall afflict your souls in the 9th day of the month at evening, from evening unto evening shall ye celebrate your Sabbath.
Okay, so right here it says, in the ninth day of the month at even, from even to even, meaning evening to evening, you shall celebrate your Sabbath. But earlier it said on the verse 27, also on the 10th day of the 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. So which one is it? Is it the ninth day or is it the 10th day? It says in the ninth day of the month at even, meaning the 10th day. It's telling us this for a reason, so that when we see this in the scriptures, we know what it's talking about. Just like in Exodus 12:6, and ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month, and the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening, meaning the evening of the 14th day, which is going into the 15th day. Oh, Lord's will, that makes sense to you because it's telling us the same thing. So let's see. Let's read on. Let's go to Leviticus 16 and read verses 29 through 31. There is other places where this same type of speech is being used.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 16, and verse 29. And this shall be a statute forever unto you, that in the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, ye shall afflict your souls, and do no work at all. whether it be one of your own country or a stranger that sojourneth among you. For on that day shall the priest make an atonement for you to cleanse you, that ye may be clean from all your sins before the Lord. It shall be a Sabbath of rest unto you, and ye shall afflict your souls by a statute forever.
All right. So what we want to get out of this is we're not teaching the Day of Atonement right now. We're using this as an example for you to understand that when the scripture says on the 14th day at evening, the lamb is to be killed, that is not talking about the beginning of the 14th day. It's talking about the end of the 14th day, which is going into actually the 15th day. So the Day of Atonement tells us that it starts on the ninth day at evening, which is actually the 10th day, because it goes on to specifically tell us, just like here in Leviticus 16, that the Day of Atonement is on the 10th day of the month. Verse 29, and this shall be a statute forever unto you, that in the seventh month, on the 10th day of the month, ye shall afflict your souls. It's telling us the same thing that we read in Leviticus 23 and 27. Also on the 10th day of the seventh month, there shall be a Day of Atonement. So it's telling us twice that it's the 10th day of the month. And then it's using that kind of what kind of speech is this? I can't think of the term of it, but where it's telling us on the ninth day of the month at even, from even to even shall you celebrate your Sabbath. It means the same thing. Ninth day of the month at even is talking about the beginning of the 10th day of the month. All right. Lord's will, that is clear to you. Let's go to Exodus 12 and 18.
The book of Exodus, chapter 12, and verse 18. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at evening, ye shall eat unleavened bread until the 1 and 20th day of the month at evening.
So the day, and this is where some of our brothers are making their mistake. That some of them are believing that the Passover is on the 14th day, and then the Feast of Unleavened Bread actually starts on the 15th day and goes for 7 days after the Passover for 8 days. That's not how you calculate it. That's not how it's done, because the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the Passover are the same thing. They begin at the same time. The Passover is eaten on that first evening, along with, we're going to get to it, along with the unleavened bread, is what we're commanded. All right. So from the 14th day of the month at even, which is the 15th day, until the 20th day of the month at even, which is actually going into what? The 21st day at even, which is 7 days. So if you count from the 14th day at even, which is the 15th day, so from evening to evening, which is the 15th day, going into the 16th day, that's 1 day. 16th to 17th, that's 2. 17th to 18th, that's 3. 18th to 19th, that's 4. 19th to 20th, that's 5. 20th to 21st, that's 6. And the 21st to the 22nd is 7. So the 21st day at evening until the evening of the 21st day, that's going into the 22nd day, is at evening, it ends. 7 days. All right. That's how long the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the Passover. The Passover is that first night, and then you go on for 7 more days, or for 6 more days after that, actually eating unleavened bread. That first day, the Passover, is included in those 7 days. All right. Let me see. It tells Leviticus, let's go to Leviticus 23 And you're going to read verses 5 through 8, actually.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 23, and verse 5. In the 14th day of the first month at evening is the Lord's Passover. And, and on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread. In the first day ye shall have an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile other work in. But ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. 7 days, in the 7th day is a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein.
All right. So again, it's telling us in the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover. This is where some of our brothers' reading comprehension gets kind of miscued. In the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover. And on the 15th day of the same month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. If you're not careful and you read it exactly as I just read through it without actually analyzing it, you would think that it's saying that the Passover is the 14th day and the Feast of Unleavened Bread starts the next day on the 15th day, that they're two separate occasions. But that's not what it's telling us. You got to understand how the Lord talks in the scriptures. This is very common for the Lord to, just like when you were in English class and the teacher would tell you, kind of mix up your words, don't use the same words, mix it up a little bit. Um, because it would sound monotonous if you say in the 15th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover, and on the 15th day of the same month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. It's easier to just say on the 15th day of the month is the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, depending on how you would want to write it. All right. Um, this is how the Lord writes. This is how he speaks or spoke to us. In the 14th day of the first month at even means the exact same thing as saying the 15th day. Okay. And he goes on again, gives us specific instructions that we're supposed to have a holy convocation on the first day. It says, in the first day, you shall have an holy convocation. As we just read and just showed you that the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the Passover goes for 7 days. This proves it. Let me start again. In the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover. And on the 15th day of the same month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread unto the Lord. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. So those 7 days we must eat unleavened bread, which includes the first day, which is the Passover, because we have to eat unleavened bread on that night. Again, we're going to prove it to you. We have precepts that's going to show it. All right. Also, on that first day of the Passover, we're supposed to have an holy convocation, meaning we're supposed to come together, have a holy gathering. It says, you shall do no servile work therein. So we're supposed to gather together, and we're not supposed to be working on that day. All right. But you shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days. And the seventh day is an holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. Okay. Let's go to Numbers chapter 9. You're going to read verses 2 through 5.
The book of Numbers, chapter 9, and verse 2. Let the children of Israel also keep the Passover at his appointed seasons. In the 14th day of this month at evening, ye shall keep it in his appointed seasons, according to all the rites of it, and according to all the ceremonies thereof shall ye keep it. And Moses spake unto the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover. And they kept the Passover on the 14th day of the first month at evening in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that the Lord commanded Moses, so that the children of Israel.
All right. So again, in the 14th day of this month at even, you shall keep it in his appointed season. So remember, the Lord's feasts are set. They don't kind of just drift around the calendar like we read about Easter. That's not what happens with the Lord's feast. So Moses is telling the children of Israel that they should keep the Passover exactly the way the Lord told them to do it. All right. Let's go to Numbers 28 and read verses 16 to 17.
The book of Numbers, chapter 28 and verse 16. It says, "And in the 14th day of the first month is the Passover of the Lord. And in the 15th day of this month is the feast. 7 days shall unleavened bread be eaten."
All right. So you read this, and this is what our brothers have done. Oh man, he's saying it twice. So in the mouth of two or three witnesses, it must be true that the 14th day is the Passover, and the Feast of Unleavened Bread actually starts the next day. Wow, how come we see that? You're not seeing it. Your eyes are playing tricks on you. Your ears are playing tricks on you. You have to ask yourself, are these verses really splitting the days into two separate feasts, into two separate feast days? Is it doing that? The way to find out is let's go to Exodus 12 and 8. As we mentioned earlier, there are precepts that shows you that the unleavened bread was also eaten on that first night. It's not separated. We're going to show you precepts that proves that the 14th at evening and the 15th are not separate days. They're not separate high holy days. They're not separate celebrations. It's one and the same. Go ahead.
The book of Exodus, chapter 12 and verse 8. "And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire, and with unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it."
So this is talking about the Passover lamb or the Passover meal. This is exactly what we're supposed to eat that first night on the 14th day at evening, which is the 15th day. The Passover meal is we're supposed to eat lamb that's roasted with fire. It's got to be cooked over fire. You can't boil it in some water. You can't throw it in your microwave, nothing like that. You've got to make sure it's roasted with fire. Along with that, unleavened bread. As I stated earlier, unleavened bread is eaten with the Passover lamb because it's also the start of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. It's not two separate high holy days. So again, and they shall eat the flesh of that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Those three things we should have. All right. The lamb and the unleavened bread are eaten the same night. The 14th day at even is the 15th day. Brothers that are teaching this are very mistaken when they're teaching people that the Passover is separate from the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Because you've heard, especially when certain situations happened at a particular Passover, and they were trying to stress, but it wasn't the Passover. It wasn't the Passover. It wasn't the Passover. Um, yeah, it was in the midst of our 7 day feast. You know what I mean? Not going to go into it when what exactly what I'm talking about. You know, you know. If you don't, you don't. But again, these things continue to happen in Israel because, as we mentioned earlier, because of weak leadership, weak leaders teaching students, and then their students are going out becoming leaders, and you've got what has been bred is more weak leadership. All right. And it continues to happen in Israel. It's going to continue to happen until we as a body decide to stand up that we're not going to take it anymore. We're not just going to just because somebody gets a camp name, put on some garments or whatever, get a logo, go on YouTube and start teaching, and go out in the streets and start teaching, that we're just going to automatically just accept these people, into the Israelite community. And then what ends up happening is the few brothers that are out there teaching that really are sincere about making change, they get ostracized because they're not teaching certain doctrines that these guys are teaching. And it's these doctrines that these guys are teaching are the reasons for a lot of the turmoil going on in Israel. So something needs to be done because there's too much wickedness going on within the Israelite community that's being brushed over. People are hiding, okay? Especially around these times of these high holy days. Seems like a lot of the evil, a lot of the wickedness that goes on in Israel always happens around these high holy days. That's why it's important for us to have to teach these things. All right. But we're going to continue this. We're almost done already. Um, just going to bring out a few more scriptures that shows that the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread are connected. They're not two separate high holy days. All right. Let's go to the book of Mark, chapter 14. You're going to read verse 12.
The book of Mark, chapter 14 and verse 12. And it says, and the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover, his disciples said unto him, where wilt thou that we go and prepare that thou mayest eat the Passover?
Okay, in the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover, you see, you might read this and connect it to the other scriptures we read from the Old Testament. To see, there's a third witness. They're separate. The first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover, the Passover was killed at evening, the 14th day at even. Okay, which is what? Going into the 15th day. They are not two separate high holy days. They are connected. In fact, they are one and the same. How do we know? Let's go to Luke 22 and 1. This will sum it up. This should clear up any confusion that you may have about whether or not Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread are two separate high holy days.
The book of Luke, chapter 22 and verse 1. Now the feast of unleavened bread drew nigh, which is called the Passover.
Now the Feast of Unleavened Bread drew nigh, meaning it drew close. It was getting closer to the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is called the Passover. They're the same thing. Feast of Unleavened Bread and Passover are interchangeable. They're the same thing. Same high holy day happening on the same day, or we want to call it the same night, the same evening. Let's go to verse 7, Luke 22 and 7.
Luke chapter 22 and verse 7. Then came the day of unleavened bread when the Passover must be killed.
Then came the day of unleavened bread when the Passover must be killed. All right. They're the one and the same thing, the same date, same time. Remember back in the day, you watched the old Batman TV show, will return next Saturday, Same bat channel, same bat time. It's the same thing. Exact same time. All right. So, all in all, what do we know so far? We know when the Feast of Unleavened Bread is, and the feast and the Passover. It's the 14th day of the month at evening. Or as opposed to on the 10th day of the month, set the lamb aside. The lamb must be perfect, cannot have any blemishes. It must be a male of a year old. Can't bring no female. Can't have any blemishes. The lamb is to be killed on the 14th day of the month at evening. We're supposed to um, eat eat the Passover, which is the Passover meal, which is made up of the lamb, leavened bread, and bitter herbs. We're going to get more into that next Sabbath. We're going to continue dealing with the Passover because, like we said, the Passover is coming up in just a little less than 2 weeks. All right. For those that are following the moon, yeah, their Passovers are going to end up somewhere around the end of April, around the time of Easter, because they're following the moon, especially those that are following the full moon. You're going to find that their Passovers are going to fall somewhere around the time of Easter, way at the end of April. Just guys, just please go. Don't take our word for it. Go watch our lesson and go and research for yourself. Everybody else followed the moon. We didn't. Everything else, even including Easter, follows the moon. The Christians at least got a little more enlightened and decided to follow the solar calendar in order to set the date for Christmas. But again, that's confusion. You got one of the holidays being set by the moon and the other holiday being set by the sun. The Lord is not the author of confusion. All right. So basically, what we need to do is we've got to understand what is required of us by the Most High, especially when it comes to the high holy days. All right. What is required of you Israelites, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans? Let's go to Deuteronomy 10 and 12 through 13. Like I said, there's going to be just a simple lesson so you know when the Passover occurs according to the calendar. If you watched our lesson last week, we went through just a little bit of the calendar so you could understand that the new year started last week on Wednesday, which was basically Tuesday at evening. Passover is coming up 2 weeks after that, not this coming Wednesday, but the Wednesday following. And it's a set high holy day, set dates, set times. All right, go ahead.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 10 and verse 12. And now, Israel, what does the Lord thy God require of thee? But to fear the Lord, and the fear of the Lord thy God, to walk in all his ways, to love him, and to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul, to keep the commandments of the Lord and his statutes, which I command thee this day for thy good.
For thy good. So now, Israel, what is required of thee? He tells us straight. But to fear the Lord thy God, to walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul. So we must fear the Lord. You must walk in his ways, must love him, and we must serve him. That's what's required of you Israelites. And it sums it up. To keep the commandments of the Lord and his statutes, which I command thee this day for thy good. Fearing God, walking in his ways, loving him and serving him means to keep his commandments. And Part of the commandments that he gave us is for us to keep these high holy days. All right. When you go into the scriptures, you will find that Christ kept the Passover. Christ did not celebrate Easter. There weren't Israelites running around, little children, kid Israelites back in that day, running around with Easter baskets, carrying around little Easter bunny stuffed animals and chocolate eggs and chocolate bunnies and stuff like that. That was not going on. But our people won't take the time to ask the question, like, where did this stuff come from? We were told that the time would come when our people would not endure sound doctrine, that you would heap to yourselves teachers having itching ears. Whatever sounds good to you. You were a whoremonger in the world. You want to continue to be a whoremonger? You find a camp that's teaching multiple wives, it'll sound good to you. You don't have to change. You like sagging your pants in the world? You don't want to change because you like sagging your pants? You're going to find that Israelite camp that don't care if you sag your pants because the leaders are sagging their pants. You're going to go there. You're going to find, let's say a brother comes into the truth and he loves wearing the baseball cap. You're going to find that group that says you don't have to take your hat off in order to teach. You can keep your hat on when you're praying and prophesying. That's not breaking the scriptures. You're going to go to that group because now you don't have to take your baseball cap off. You can go to camp looking like a thug with a baseball cap and sagging pants, and all you got to do is throw in your camp colors, your t-shirt with your fringes, and you good. Looking like the Lord's gang, I guess. Instead of looking like the Lord's army, you got some of our brothers out there camp banging, and which basically is just thinking they're righteous, doing righteous gang banging, I guess. Let's go to Micah 6 and 8.
Micah. The book of Micah, chapter 6 and verse 8. He had showed thee, O man, what is good, and what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God.
So again, Israel, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, what is required of you? It says, he hath showed thee, O man, what is good. And what doth the Lord require of thee, but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God. Many in Israel don't know how to be merciful. Many in Israel don't know how to humble themselves. There's so much ego and pride in this Israelite community. It's a shame. And many don't know how to do justly, and certainly many don't know how to do what's good. Things have got to change. All right. So with that, let's go to 1 Peter chapter 3. You're going to read verses 8 through 12.
That's the book of 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an
Peter 3 and 8.
Hold on. I was on 2 Peter and changed to hold on. Right. 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8. Finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another. Love as brethren, and be pitiful, be courteous, not rendering evil for evil or railing for railing, but contrariwise blessing, knowing that you are thereunto called, that ye shall inherit a blessing. For he that will love life, see good days. Let him refrain his tongue from evil, and his lips that they speak no guile. Let him eschew evil and do good. Let him seek peace and ensure it. For the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, and his ears are open unto their prayer. But the face of the Lord is against them that do evil.
But the face of the Lord, but the face of the Lord is against them that do evil. Many of us in this Israelite community that have woken up already need to take these scriptures to heart. All right. We're not shocked when one of the leaders in Israel, you know what I mean, ends up falling. You shouldn't be shocked. If you're paying attention, listening to the things that they say, watching the things that they just watch how they move. It's not shocking. The shocking thing is a lot of the people's response to it. But we're gonna go to Ecclesiastes 12 and 13 through 14.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12 and verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into just judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
And that's what we forget about in the Israelite community, that the Most High is going to judge. You're going to have to go to that judgment seat at some point. He's going to bring every secret thing to light, whether it's good or evil. If you're secretly doing good, he's going to bring it out. If you're secretly doing evil, he's going to bring it out. Don't be shocked, because we've been seeing this stuff year after year after year. Around the time of high holy days, there's always some controversy that pops up in Israel. I'm not shocked by it. Again, when you listen to the rhetoric, you listen to some of the doctrine some of these guys teach, what is so shocking? They're telling you who they are every day. If you're paying attention, if you're not, so if you're not one that's caught up in trying to idolize these men, and you can see past the titles and the flashy, get-ups and and all that stuff. Just listen to what to the words they speak. Listen to their doctrine. Listen to their teachings. All right. But again, the Passover is coming up. You want to learn more about how we calculate the high holy days, the calendar, all of that. Again, just go to our channel, look up, and I believe we have them on there. What do they call them? The sections. So just look for that section that's titled the Lord's Calendar. And there's 4 videos there. Each of them is anywhere between like 4 to 6 hours long. And watch them and write notes and go back and double check what it is that we're teaching. And I guarantee you, if you actually do that, you're going to come to the same conclusion and understand that, no, we're not supposed to be following no moon.
Mm-hmm.
We were even warned about it. But because some of our brothers want to dismiss some of the other books that are written, like the book of Enoch and the book of Jasher and things like that, they want to dismiss these books. And the only reason why some of our brothers dismiss these books is because they want to have a good standing with some of these Edomites that they have these debates with. They don't want to be able to be called out because they're reading one of these books. All right. And it's like, what are you going to care what they think when they're basically celebrating holidays that aren't even in the Bible? And you're going to let them try and make you feel bad for reading the records of your people? It's crazy. But again, we're looking forward to the Passover. We pray that our brothers can get this leaven, just get rid of this leaven that they have inside of them. That's what the leaven represents. That leaven represents sin. And we'll go over that next time. There's a whole lot more. We just, like I said, we just wanted to touch up on some basic stuff today. There's a lot more, like getting the leaven out of your house, the leaven representing sin, the lamb representing Christ. You know what I mean? We have actually, if you want to, before the Sabbath even comes, because I don't think we're going to do this lesson this time, you can go back and watch it. It's on our channel. What is that video titled? The Passover Meal, where we go through and we break down what the Passover meals, all the spiritual representation of it, what it represents. Okay, so you go back and watch that video. But there's, a little bit more to the Passover about how we're supposed to be eating it with our shoes on, staff in hand. There's some stuff we did not cover today. We're going to cover next Sabbath. All right. So keep that in mind. Again, Lord's will. We as a congregation, as we're heading, we're calling it Passover season because we know a lot of people have a different Passovers, different times. But from about now till about the end of April, you're going to see different camps holding their Passovers. And we just pray that Lord's will, Israel can get rid of the leaven.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's another thing we'll go over. You got to get the leaven out of your homes before, the Passover, comes. And, again, we'll see you next Sabbath, Lord's will. Enjoy the rest of this Sabbath here in Cali. We finally got some good weather. The rain and snow and all that stuff that's been going on here is finally giving us a little break. It's supposed to come back again, I believe, on Wednesday. But for right now, it's nice and clear and blue outside, sunny. Looks like it's warm. It looks like a nice spring day. You hear the birds chirping and, try and enjoy it. If you're out teaching on the streets, Lord's will, you wake up at least one person. If you're going to be teaching a class online, Lord's will, you wake up one person. But again, just some heartbreaking stuff that's going on in Israel. You know what I mean? So with that, we're going to say shalom, most high Christ blessed. Lord's will, we will see you next Sabbath. Until then, have a blessed week and, do your best to make it through captivity and doing your work. If you got to work, whatever the case may be, Lord's will, we'll see you next Sabbath. Shalom.